Hello, and in this part 2 speaking video, I will describe a subject that you used to dislike but are now interested in. You should say what the subject is, why you disliked it, why you are interested in it now, and explain how you became interested in it. To be perfectly honest, I could probably talk about any subject that I used to study at school, because I didn't really like any of them when I was studying them in school. It wasn't the teacher's fault. I suppose it was because when you were at school, being stuck in a classroom is nobody's idea of fun. Anyway, I have decided to talk about history because it was probably the one I was least interested in during my school years. In my school, we could drop subjects in year 9, and I actually dropped it because I wasn't in the slightest bit interested in it. The major reason for my lack of interest was ignorance. What I mean by that is that I was young and not very worldly. So when the teacher was talking about different countries and the things that had happened, I found it incredibly difficult to comprehend because I had no understanding or knowledge of these countries. For example, when they would talk about the Korean War or the Vietnam War, I had no idea where these places were, and so I couldn't relate to anything the teacher was going on about. As I have matured, I have developed a wider range of interests, and thanks to globalization, the world is much more connected than it was previously, so I have a greater awareness of other countries and their past struggles. Travelling to various countries has also sparked an interest in history, as when I visit foreign climes, I often visit museums and historical buildings, so this has further stimulated my interest in world history. I guess that as I get older, this interest is going to intensify even more. I have even started watching documentaries on TV about historical events, something which I would never have done a decade ago. I feel there are huge gaps in my knowledge, and I still have an awful lot to learn, but now it is a hobby rather than a compulsory school subject, and I'm enjoying acquiring this new knowledge. So let's take a look at some of the language. I keep repeating, to be perfectly honest, in many of these videos to try and reinforce it so you remember it. Also, used to study, and when I was studying, these are perfect for this topic when I was studying in school. It wasn't the teacher's fault, meaning they weren't responsible for the fact I didn't like it. I can't blame them. If it's somebody's fault, they're responsible for it. But I'm saying it's not their fault. It wasn't the teacher's fault. It was because I was young, being stuck in a classroom. If you are stuck somewhere, you can't leave. And so I'm stuck in a classroom. I cannot leave it. Anyway, so when you start talking and sometimes you're talking a bit much and you feel like you need to get back to the topic that you're supposed to talk about anyway. So it's like saying, right, I'm going back now to answer the questions I've decided to talk about. Remember to use that because it gets your present perfect in. I was least interested in. You can say I was most interested in, and this is the opposite. I was least interested in. So in the UK, you take a range of subjects in year 7 and 8, and then often in year 9 you can drop some. So you say, I don't want to study art, or I don't want to study music anymore, and you drop them, you stop studying them. So I dropped it. I wasn't in the slightest bit interested in it. So this is saying I wasn't interested in it at all. My lack of interest, so useful for this topic. And I'm saying it's ignorance. Ignorance is when you don't know something. It's a lack of knowledge about something. So I was ignorant. I was not very worldly. This means I hadn't travelled. I didn't know an awful lot about the world. I had no world or international knowledge. And that was the problem. So when the teacher was talking about these different countries and the things that had happened, I didn't know. I didn't understand it. It was incredibly difficult. Remember to use incredibly instead of using very. To comprehend, to understand. When they would talk about, would is used here like used to. So a repeated action in the past. So when they would talk about, I couldn't relate to anything. This means you can't connect it to anything in your head. You don't understand it. You can't relate to something. It means you can't understand what is being talked about. Anything the teacher was going on about. This is a very informal way of saying to talk about. To go on about something means to talk about something. So instead of saying, as I have got older, as I have matured, because mature means to get older. A wider range of interests, so more interest. Thanks to, because of, globalization, so the world becoming more international and connected, more global, so it's become connected thanks to the internet and globalization than it was previously, than it was before. So I have a greater awareness of. This is a complex way of saying I know more about. A greater awareness of other countries and their past struggles. A struggle is a problem, a difficulty, a hardship. So past struggles, here I'm referring to when they've had wars or when they've had difficult times in their history. To spark an interest in. This is a good collocation, meaning to create an interest in something. Foreign climes. This can be used in IELTS writing. It's quite complex, quite formal, and it means foreign countries. Climes come from the word climate, and it's like visiting foreign places with a different climate, but we just use it to mean countries. So foreign climes, foreign countries. But make sure you spell it correctly. It's not like climb with a B. So it sparked an interest, and then it further stimulated my interest. Another collocation, to stimulate an interest in something and to further stimulate an interest in something. And this interest is going to intensify more as I get older. This means it's going to get bigger. It's going to intensify, means to get larger, to get stronger, to get bigger. A documentary is a factual TV program about something, so a historical documentary. Something which I would never have done. Here we've got a modal talking about the past and saying I would not have done this a decade ago. So looking back, this is not something I ever did. Huge gaps in my knowledge. A gap is a hole, a space. And so when we talk about gaps in your knowledge, it's where something is missing. I'm using this an awful lot. I'm using it many times in these part 2 speakings because I just think it's something you would say a lot. But if you can start saying an awful lot, it's just a little bit more complex. It is informal, so don't use it in IELTS writing, but it's fabulous for IELTS speaking. So a hobby, something you like to do, an activity in your free time. School subjects which you must do, such as maths, are compulsory. So I'm saying now it's a hobby, it's not a subject that I have to study in school. And we talk about acquiring new knowledge, gaining new knowledge, basically getting new knowledge, but this is more complex, acquiring new knowledge. So now let's take a look at a couple of part 3 questions connected to this topic. So this topic is about studying, learning, and so they might ask you, do you think all teachers should have entertaining teaching styles? That means that they should be fun when they teach. My immediate reaction is yes, 100% yes. So instead of just going, yes, I think they should have entertaining teaching styles, your immediate reaction is your reply without giving it a lot of thought, without thinking about it too much. And this is a quite strong reaction. So you could use this in one of your part 3 answers, whatever they ask you, if it's a do you think question. My immediate reaction is yes, 100% yes, or my immediate reaction is no, 100% no. There is a view of teaching that states that you cannot teach anybody anything. You can only inspire them to learn. Now, you don't need to go as complex as this, but this is a humanistic way of teaching. And it does say that the teacher doesn't teach anything, but the teacher inspires you, motivates you to learn. And I actually believe in this teaching style, and I think I've had many students who have been unable to teach anything because they don't want to learn. So it's your job as the teacher to try and inspire them, to spark an interest in them. If your teaching style is dull and the students are bored to death, bored to tears, then they're not inspired to learn anything. So dull means boring. You could say tedious. And a good idiomatic expression, bored to tears, bored to death. So they're not inspired, they're not motivated to learn anything. So yes, I am very strongly of the view that teachers should have entertaining learning styles. Even if you don't agree with me, just use these as your answer because it's got complex language. Another question they might ask you is about the practical subjects that we should learn in school. So what subjects are more practical to learn and more useful to learn nowadays? The main subject that should be included on this list is cooking. So I think this is the most important skill that we should have when we leave school. In the UK, a lot of schools don't teach cookery nowadays, and I think that this is wrong. In the majority of schools, cookery is not taught, and kids leave school without this essential life skill. We talk a lot now about life skills, so skills that you should have to survive, to live when you leave school. So cooking is a life skill, and it's essential, it's important, but it's not taught. Some good passive grammar there. Cookery is not taught in the majority of schools. They then eat nothing but convenience food and fast food, high in sugar and bad fats, which is a major reason why levels of obesity and heart disease are at record levels. A lot of language here useful for IELTS writing, if it's about eating and convenience foods and fast foods, etc. So convenience food is easy food. Food that you buy in a packet and you heat in the microwave. Fast food from takeaways, and it's high in sugar and bad fats. Not all fats are bad, some are good, but it's the bad fats that often convenience food and fast food is high in. And it's a major reason why levels of obesity, people being overweight, and heart disease are at record levels. If something is at a record level, it means it's the highest it's ever been. It's broken a record because it's got so high. So hope you found this useful, and hope you like having the part 3s in these videos as well. Thank you very much for watching.